Hi, I am your kid critic Jack Mooney, and welcome to the Jack Mooney Show. And in today's video, we are ranking the films of the DCEU. So let's get started with number 6, last place, which goes to Justice League. Now, this film had a lot of potential. The film before it was Wonder Woman, which is arguably a really good film. But this is what we got, and it's really bad. And, I'm not going to say it's 100% bad because there are some glimmers of good stuff throughout. I liked Aquaman. I actually really like the score to this film. Danny Elfman did it, and there was the theme of the 1989 Batman and John Williams Superman. There was some glimmers of that in the score, but that's beside the point. I just like the score for this movie. But the movie sucks. And it's the writing, it's the pacing, it's the directing. You can tell that there was a troubled set. And I hoped Joss Whedon could save it, but a good director like Whedon couldn't fix the mess that this movie was. I am curious to see Zack Snyder's cut, but, I'm not a huge fan of Snyder. The only movie of his that I actually really like is Watchmen. But, besides from that, there's just a lot of stuff going on throughout. The CGI is not great. I don't like Ben Affleck. Henry Cavill's phoning it in. The mustache is awful. It's the removal of it. It's just, ugh. And probably the worst villain I have ever seen in a movie is Steppenwolf. A CGI mess. Not even a character. It's just really bad. And in typical DC fashion, the ending sucks, and it's a CGI mess, which is the case with all these movies on this list. So yeah, I really don't like this movie, and it's a shame. So yeah, definitely in last place. It's not good, but things will be getting a little better from here. So yeah. Originally this movie was last on the list, but then I realized that there are a couple good elements in Suicide Squad, and those being Margot Robbie and Will Smith. And that's just about it for the good stuff. And, I remember when the Comic-Con trailer came out for this movie, and it was really good. It was dark. It didn't look like a music video, and I was like, okay, this actually looks pretty good. This is before, the DC universe was, completely a mess. When the Comic-Con trailer came out, at least. And I got really excited. And then, Batman vs. Superman happened, and people got a little more nervous. And then this movie happened, and then, wow. And it's a mess. And I blame it completely on David Ayer. I do know that the studio did not give him a lot of time to write the script, which is definitely an issue. I think his directing is lazy, but if there is an extended cut, I would be interested to see it. And the editing is really bad too. Whoever edited this movie, that's probably the worst thing about it. It just doesn't flow. It's choppy. Also, probably in second place for worst is Jared Leto. He's just, after we got the great Heath Ledger, we get this, and it's just so bad. Probably the worst Joker performance out there. I'm really excited for Joaquin Phoenix's film, by the way. But just what a mess, and a horrible villain, a horrible ending, just a CGI mess with, I don't even remember, some Egyptian goddess or whatever. Oh my god, it's so stupid. Yeah, and I could say the soundtrack could have saved the movie, but it's just, they play so many songs throughout that it feels like a music video. I really don't like it. It's the editing, the writing, the directing. It's just Margot Robbie and Will Smith that make it entertaining at times. So I am excited for a Suicide Squad 2, but I really hate this movie. It's atrocious. So I guess this is the point on the list when the films begin to be watchable for me. And I know a lot of people hate Batman vs. Superman, and I agree with a lot of your flaws to the film. But personally, I actually don't have a lot of issues with it, and I think it's it's an okay film. It's not good. It's just okay. Obviously, yes, Jesse Eisenberg's horrible. Probably the worst performance of his career. The Doomsday stuff is a CGI mess and just horrible. And the editing isn't great. But after watching it a couple times, I have grown to like the film more, and I see more positives to it. And also after seeing the extended edition, which if you do find the time to watch a 3.5 hour film, I recommend it. Because a lot of the issues you saw with the product that came out in theaters, you're like, okay, they're better in this, and there may have been some studio interference. Because Snyder had some good ideas he was trying to get at. And the end product was shortened and not as clean. And I think the extended edition, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, is a more clean version of the film. Yeah, I really like the end fight with Batman and Superman. I think it's well choreographed. I wish it was longer, but what we got was interesting. I like the whole beginning with Superman smashing the buildings. I think it worked because that was a flaw for me for Man of Steel, and I think they incorporated it in a more in like a way that we're like, okay, so they realized what they did wrong with Man of Steel, so they're going to do this. So it was interesting. And some people have talked through like, oh, it's so depressing, and that's what I think of when I think of DC. I think of it as a darker world, menacing, brooding, and that's why I like The Dark Knight so much. And I think that worked here. Yes, it was maybe a bit too dark at times, but when they try to go too light with Suicide Squad or an Aquaman, it just doesn't work as much for me. I think the darker DC movies are, in a way, better, more successful. So, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of Affleck either. I think he did better in this than Justice League. But I'm glad that, or at least I hope he's not Batman anymore, and Cavill's not Superman. But yeah, it's an interesting film. It has lots of good ideas in it, and though it wasn't put together in the right way, it's still a decent film. So yeah. I had high hopes for this film. I really did. And I saw it last night, and I'm very disappointed with the product we got. After getting great films like Wonder Woman, and then now we get this, and I know Justice League was in the middle, but still, it's just embarrassing. But let's talk about what I liked about the movie first. And I'd say the biggest plus would be Momoa. Most of the time, he's funny, and he's a great lead. I'd say the action was pretty cool some of the time. The Ring of Fire scene was cool. The submarine scene at the beginning was okay. I really liked the lighting throughout. The production design was great. The CGI worked some of the time. A lot of the time it didn't, but some of the time it was pretty decent. But yeah, those are like most of the positives. Like I was saying, Momoa did get kind of annoying around halfway through the film, which was an issue because he's Aquaman. And I'd say it wasn't him, it was the writing. The writing is just atrocious. Some of the worst writing I've seen in a superhero movie in recent memory. And I think that's the case with most DC films. It's just the writing, they just don't know how to nail. And also, I feel like James Wan, isn't really a focused director this time around. I thought he did a pretty good job with Furious 7 and the Conjuring films. And he did an okay job some of the time in Aquaman, but a lot of the time it was messy. It seemed like he was confused, DC was confused, and he just didn't know what he was trying to tell. So unfocused directing is always something that'll drag down the movie significantly. They did have some Suicide Squad issues where there were these scenes, and they looked like they didn't know what to do, so they'd put music over them and have this horrible music video effect. So those were funny. But yeah, it's just so stupid, and I did have high hopes, and Aquaman lands at number 3, and I don't know, I was disappointed. I actually kind of like Man of Steel. I know there's haters out there, and I know there's people who absolutely love it. But I think it's actually kind of decent. The first two acts, I think it does a really nice job of setting up Clark's background and story. It actually does a great job at that. And I like how it shows kind of Superman's roots with his father, Jor-El, Russell Crowe, and the movie is also just really beautiful. I know the cinematography is kind of over the top, and people like to laugh at it, but it is pretty gorgeous. Snyder does a good job with that in this film, and yeah, it's really calming and an interesting take, perspective on Clark's story. And Henry Cavill did a great job at it. Probably this is his best portrayal of Superman in the 3 films he's been in, and I guess he's done now. So yeah, and then the stuff with Zod, though Shannon may have been a little over the top, I still thought he was a decent villain. We're still talking about the first 2 acts. But where the movie goes wrong is the 3rd act, where it just gets too violent and too over the top. Smashing into buildings, punching things, no really I don't know how to describe it. No emotional punch. It just, there's a lot going on, and you just need like a breath of air to like, really understand. Okay, let's start to feel for the characters, and that's where it doesn't really do a good job at that. And the first 2 acts are very entertaining. Snyder does a phenomenal job, but the last act always loses me because of how silly it is. It's probably the best finale to a DC film. I hate all the other DC movies. Actually, every single DC movie in this universe, I hate the endings. But this is probably the best. It's the least on the CGI and over the topness. But yeah, Man of Steel is a decent film. I kind of like it. Not horrible. I remember when I first walked out of the theater for Wonder Woman, I was blown away because I thought it was a landmark in film and one of the most important films for women's rights and feminism, and I just loved it so much, the ideas Patty Jenkins was trying to tell, and it was done in such a natural and almost poetic way, and is one of the reasons why this may be one of the best superhero movies of all time. Even though the ending kind of sucks, I'd say 95% of this movie is truly epic, inspiring, and really fucking phenomenal. It's the only movie on this list that I would give an A, and that's just because of the work behind it and the effort that was put into telling a great story, something that kids, adults, anybody can look up to. Wonder Woman just is inspiring and a great hero for all. I really enjoy it. The film's well directed, well written. It's got pretty good action. The scene, the World War I scene, is emotional. A great moment in film to remember. And yeah, I think Gal Gadot does a pretty good job as Wonder Woman. She could do better, but with what she gives us is pretty good. And yeah, I'm just really excited for the next Wonder Woman to come out. This universe of Wonder Woman, probably the only interesting character in the DCEU right now, and I'm really excited to see what's in store for her next. It's just a really important film, and I like movies that are important because they inspire you and they give you hope, and that's the reason why I want to become a filmmaker. It's movies like this. I love Wonder Woman. It's the best movie in the DCEU, and yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. That is Wonder Woman.